Hello, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for those of you who are not on the Pacific time zone, probably our audience from the Midwest or East Coast. Thank you for joining. My name is Arvind Rajan from Astute Business Solutions. I will be your host and presenter today for the webinar, and we'll be talking about deploying PeopleSoft on cloud. What does that mean? What does it look like? What are your options? How does it work? Some common concerns and so on. There are a few people who are still joining in, so I'm going to give them an extra minute or two before I get started with the presentation. So please bear with us. I will share some details about how the webinar platform works and how you can interact with me via the Join Me tool to ask questions, and then we'll go from there straight into the presentation. Okay, so thank you for waiting. So let us get started. My name is Arvind Rajan, for those of you who just joined, and you are attending a webinar where I'll be discussing PeopleSoft on cloud. What can you do to deploy your PeopleSoft applications on cloud? What does cloud mean to you? What are all the options available? And how you can go about addressing some common concerns that may come up when you discuss cloud internally within your organizations. So I'm with Astute Business Solutions. I'll start out with a quick overview. So I'll start out with a quick overview of what the webinar platform is, and then we can go from there. So all of you would be on the web conference and on the audio bridge. I've muted your lines for audio so that we can have a clear line while I'm presenting. If you have a question about the screen content that you're not able to view or about the audio bridge, then please use the chat feature on Join Me to ping me, and I'll see what we can do. But we've done this over the last 2-3 years, maybe about 20 plus times, and it goes through without much of a hassle. So hopefully all of you are connected and able to view my screen and listen to me clearly. So the agenda that I have for today, some of you, I'm being told, may see like a split screen on the presentation where you see the presenter view and the slide. Unfortunately, that is how this is rendering. I don't have much on my control to change that, but hopefully you're still able to see the content. I wanted to start out with some terminology because there's a lot of information that's been floating around. There's jargons, acronyms, abbreviations when it comes to PeopleSoft on cloud. So I thought it'd be a good idea to start everybody with that and go from there. And then we'll talk about what PeopleSoft on cloud means, some basic concepts and overview, then some use cases or business models for how you may want to deploy PeopleSoft on the cloud. And then what does an actual deployment look like? And this is not representative of every scenario that you may encounter or all the permutations and combinations of solutions that may be available to you as customers today. But just wanted to give you a starting point to understand what a cloud stack would look like for your PeopleSoft applications. And then for those of you who filled out the form questions on the registration form, thank you so much for doing that. I know we asked a few more questions on this webinar than on previous webinars, But that information gives us a lot of insight into what customers are looking for, what their common concerns are, and whether they are interested in one model versus the other. That really helped us fine-tune the content for today's presentation. So thank you for filling those out, and I'll definitely touch upon some of those concerns that many of you have sent us via answers to the questions. And then we'll leave enough time towards the end of the presentation for Q&A. My guess is that I'll probably have a good 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A, hopefully, and so I'm not going to bore you with too much presentation material. We'll get to a discussion very quickly. So something briefly about Astute Business Solutions. For many of you, I see are familiar faces in the sense that some of you have met us at conferences, in your offices, etc. Many of you have spoken to us over the last few years about different solutions, different projects. And some of you are new. This is the first time you're attending our webinar. But Astute Business Solutions is an Oracle partner. We've been in business for a decade or more. Our focus is PeopleSoft. We do some cloud-related things with PeopleSoft, and some pure cloud, as in SaaS-related implementations as well. But about 80% of our business is PeopleSoft applications, implementation, upgrade, integration, development, fluid deployment, which has been very hot recently. A lot of customers are moving down that path with 855 tools. So think of us as a full-service shop for PeopleSoft application projects. And we are an Oracle partner based here in Pleasanton, California, founded by ex-PeopleSoft employees, all of that good stuff. What we're going to talk about today, the second area of our focus is cloud. So deploying PeopleSoft applications on a public cloud or private cloud or some hybrid model. We have done it on Amazon EC2. We now have a go-to-market with Oracle to deploy this on Oracle Public Cloud. Some of you who responded to the webinar's registration form question said that your preference is the Microsoft Cloud. So we'll talk about those things. And then we have managed services that go along with these cloud deployment models. So managed services for functional support, for integration, for any other implementation needs that you could think of. Testing Cloud is something new that we are offering. It takes our test automation solution that we've built, which is PTF-based, PeopleSoft Test Framework-based, comes with dashboards, data mining tools, defect trackers, and so on. And we are now also planning to offer that as a cloud-based solution. So there's been some interest from customers on that. And then finally, strategy-wise, what we help customers do is help them lay out a roadmap and an associated plan to decide how they should make a move to cloud. Now, whether cloud for your organization means moving from a packaged on-prem application like PeopleSoft to a pure cloud model, like a ERP SaaS model like Oracle ERP Cloud or Workday, or whether it means moving your infrastructure from your current data center to a cloud provider, almost every customer that we speak to is thinking about making a move to cloud. And it varies by customer. So what we feel is there is a lot of confusion around this. There is not a lot of awareness about what options there are. So the roadmap to cloud helps customers within a short period of time understand what their options are, gives them a tailored solution for taking their applications to cloud, whether it's a big bang type approach or a phased approach, whatever suits their need. And as part of that, how can you optimize and make your applications better when you're in the cloud? Briefly about our cloud offerings, there's more information on our website if you go to cloud.bastute.com. But we can help you with integration, but we can help you obviously by putting your production systems in the cloud. We do upgrades in the cloud environment. So think of what you were doing in the past with lab upgrade, but now you can do that with cloud infrastructure, but with more control, how much of a control you would like to have on that process. If you're not ready to move production, but just want to offload dev, test, training, QA, etc., your demo instances, your new PUM instances, for those of you who are on 9.2, then cloud is a great starting point for that. Or if you just want a sandbox instance where you can check out some new functionality, prototype things without having to interfere with current ongoing development efforts, you can use cloud for that. So let's get to terminology. A lot of this is not new, but I wanted to just level set before going into some of the detailed slides, just so that everybody understands what we're going to be talking about today. So on the right-hand column, I want you to focus on PaaS, or PaaS, Platform as a Service. So In the context of Oracle's platform as a service options that are available today, you will see the database as a service, integration as a service, for example, highlighted as a platform as a service option. And basically what that means is Oracle is abstracting the infrastructure layer for you, and the same thing would apply to any other cloud service provider. And they are packaging all of that into a service where now you just buy database as a service. So it means it comes with underlying hardware, software, configuration, whatever is needed to make your database run. Whether you want a single instance, whether you want a cluster, whether you want a high performance instance, whatever your needs are, you go through a menu of options that you select from Oracle's cloud website, and you say launch an instance, and behind the scenes magic happens and you get access to a database as a service instance. If you don't want to do that and you just want infrastructure, as in you want servers in the cloud, you want one Linux machine, one Unix machine, or some combination thereof, and you want your team of experts, DBA, sysadmins, to go in and configure that to your specific needs, you can still do that. That's infrastructure as a service. Hybrid cloud, you're going to hear this both in my presentation, also in several Oracle product strategy presentations, and then many other places on the web when you look for information on cloud. What this basically means is if you're not selecting one stream or one option or one path to follow, like public cloud or private cloud, but you want to mix and match, then it becomes a hybrid. VPN, all of you know this, but it's a virtual private network, basically gives you secure connectivity between two network endpoints. And those two endpoints can be your current on-premise data center for PeopleSoft and a new cloud solution that you go to, for example. On the left-hand column, you have some of these new buzzwords that were introduced with PeopleTools 8.55. So PCA is PeopleSoft Cloud Architecture. A DPK is a deployment package. We'll talk about that later on. Puppet is one of the tools that is being bundled in. It's open source. It allows you to configure and manage deployment of PeopleSoft binaries onto your hardware. And then Application Configuration Manager allows you to further automate your PeopleSoft instance once it is set up. So let's get into some PeopleSoft on cloud concepts. I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to cloud, because when we approach a PeopleSoft customer and we say, what are your thoughts about PeopleSoft on cloud? Oftentimes they think, oh, am I being asked whether I want to get out of the PeopleSoft platform and migrate to cloud? And if I do that, what's going to happen to my team? What's going to happen to my servers, so on and so forth? We want to change the conversation a little bit and say, you are a PeopleSoft application owner. You have implemented, upgraded, and you continue to maintain it. But knowing what the roadmap is with 9.2 and the frequent updates coming in through PUM images, Oracle's selective adoption strategy, i.e., what do you really want to focus on as a business? So I'm going to use this very familiar iceberg concept, which has been used for years and years in multiple presentations when we talk strategy. And I'm going to use this as an example to show you where we think customers should be focused on, especially with 9.2 and with the drive that Oracle has and the focus that they have to deliver a fast pace of innovation with new features, whether it is fluid or new enhancements or whatever the case may be. So as a customer, you want to really think about the piece of the iceberg that's above the water, right? Because for your business, for your usability, for your day-to-day transactional needs, to interact internally, to interact with your suppliers, partners, third-party systems, and so on, there are three main things that you need to worry about. You need to be focused on UI, UX. So what does your application look like? Is it mobile enabled? Does it have the right functionality? Is the business logic configured to my particular needs? Do I have the right master data? Do I have the right controls in place? And then application control, are you able to secure it the way you're securing it on-prem? Do you have the right security access to go in and control that? Do you have the ability to say, this SOX compliance mechanism that I've implemented should be in place, and so on and so forth. And then code and configuration is important, right? So all of you have some level of enhancement or customization in your PeopleSoft system. Some of you have plenty, others you have less, and some of you are in between. So broad spectrum there. But the ability to focus on that, because if you have extensions or customizations or integrations, you're maintaining them, you're adding to them, you're improving on them. But this is really where the bulk of your focus has to be with PeopleSoft. Now, there's a lot of other things that happen behind the scenes with PeopleSoft, and those are your infrastructure-related things, your IT shared services teams, you have a stack, you have certified hardware and software, you have storage, networking, failover, physical security, database security, and somebody is managing your system so that you have redundancy, uptime, performance, and things like that. But those services that you see below the water level, that is the biggest part of the iceberg underneath, all of those things are going and have been commoditized for a long time now. What you're going to see today in the context of cloud is that this bottom set of services or tools or infrastructure, whatever combination that is, that has just been made more efficient in the cloud. It has been made more manageable. It has been tuned to be a high performance, high scalability, high reliability sort of service. And that's where customers don't have to waste a lot of time. Now, how do you align to that focus where you're focused on the top half? You have web-based access. So you have developers, administrators, PeopleSoft users, functional analysts, some mix of in-house plus contract. Then you have your PeopleSoft Cloud Platform. And then you have options on what you do with infrastructure. Where we think you should be focused on is focus your users and your enablers, like your IT admins, your business analysts, your power users, your SMEs, on what is the highest value that you can get out of PeopleSoft. Are there configurations that you're not utilizing today? Are there new features in the application that you're not taking advantage of? So you're on 9.2, you're applying PUM 17, but you are not taking advantage of all the latest features in PUM 17. Is there something you can do to focus on that as opposed to worrying about how many resources am I or allocating to upgrade, to hardware, to deployment, to refresh, and whatnot? So make that team more proactive, align with the first three things that we saw: usability, UI, UX, functionality, business logic, master data, application control, and then enhancement integration. Think of your PeopleSoft Cloud Platform as something that is disposable. You build it when you need it, you use it as long as you need it. When you don't need it, you tear it down. Obviously, if you put your production system on there, it's going to run as long as you have a business and you need your production systems there. But for all of your other non-production instances, you may maintain a core set, like a dev test environment, but all the additional ones that you spin up for projects, for upgrades, for PUM images, for people tools, those are all basically consumable, and then you tear it down and dispose it when you don't need it. Everything else below that, the infrastructure, you're just looking at a provider or your in-house teams. If you're doing this in your private cloud as a service, you're really not the application team, the IT team in charge of running PeopleSoft should be saying, I'm going to call upon a service or log a ticket and say, I need this infrastructure. You are not going to go into how much it costs, who's getting the server, how they size it. You're going to give them your requirements, and boom, you get back an instance, and you're off to the races. So aligning to that focus is a slight change in the way you do things, removing those infrastructure elements and the setup and PS admin DBA elements from the PeopleSoft equation, thinking of that more as a commoditized service is what will help you deal with these new changes in a more effective way. So knowing that, how does PeopleSoft on cloud work? So you have a stack for PeopleSoft applications. You have that today. And your stack could be all on one massive server, or you could have multiple servers that you scale depending on your workload or performance or production versus non-production. You still have application access. Obviously, you need that. You have access to all the things that you do in PeopleSoft in a cloud environment. That is your top layer of the stack. Think of it that way. So that's your browser-based access to your PeopleSoft application and all of the other online features that you're used to seeing. Then a certain group within your organization will have tools access. Going to the cloud with PeopleSoft does not mean that you cannot access People Tools, Application Designer, to go in and make changes. No. Now, that's in the ERP cloud world, software as a service world, where you hear that word, no customization, you have to use a delivered vanilla application as is. We all know that in the PeopleSoft world, that's not going to fly, that's not going to work. So you still need People Tools access. It's just that instead of connecting to a local machine or a local VM or a Citrix environment, you would just go now to a cloud provider's environment. For you, it will be very seamless. You would just change your endpoint and say, I'm connecting to a new remote desktop, and your application would work exactly like the way it works today, and you should have access to all of your tools. Now, services would be the layer below this that enables all of this to be available, to be working smoothly, and to provide the SLAs, uptime, integration services, development services, whatever combination of services you need to operate in your environment. Some of you are fully self-sufficient within your PeopleSoft team, as in you handle everything, functional design, implementation, development, testing, infrastructure support, everything is fully baked in. Others have some pieces of this outsourced to contractors, to managed service providers. So that's what we mean by services. And then along with this comes a service level agreement, that you sign up for and that is tailored to your specific needs. Again, infrastructure and platform should be seamless and invisible. You should be focused on operating your PeopleSoft application, modifying it, enhancing it. Everything else is services and SLA based, and you just consume that for your application. So in short, this is really no different than your on-premise stack. It looks exactly the same, except that all of this now works in the cloud. For you, it's business as usual. Yes, there is some upfront setup required for you to go in and launch an instance in the cloud, connect that to your securely through to your data center or through your network so that you have access to that and other applications. All of that is a one-time setup. But once that is set up, the way you access PeopleSoft, the way you use it, the way you consume services, nothing changes for you. It's business as usual. Now, once you have that set up, how does it really behave, right? There's lots of questions on, what will I do with integration? Will my cloud PeopleSoft instance be able to talk to my on-prem custom in-house bespoke application that we have for claims management, for example, right? Yes, it can, and it should. This is standard networking technology. Nothing has changed there. It has just become better and more sophisticated over a period of time. Just like you would connect your PeopleSoft application to other third-party applications today, you would just connect your PeopleSoft Cloud application to those third-party applications. Now, the underlying mechanisms may be slightly different, and your options may be more in this case. So you can still do old school networking, and through that secure network, you can have these servers talk to each other and endpoints can be connected. Or if you have always had a desire to do something along the lines of a SOA suite or a middleware-based integration platform, you can think of Integration Cloud as a service where, for example, Oracle has integration as in the cloud. Its platform as a service. It includes an application in the cloud that you can use to basically connect the endpoints, PeopleSoft to your benefits provider, PeopleSoft to your suppliers, PeopleSoft to your bank, for example, PeopleSoft to your back office claims management application, PeopleSoft to your back office employee onboarding processes. All of these can be connected using that integration as a cloud service. Works very nicely, takes you automatically up to everything web services and all of the cool standardized stuff. That's an option. If you don't want to do that, you can still set up good old networking connectivity between cloud and your on-premise systems, and you can have bidirectional communications between the two. What happens to security when your PeopleSoft instance is in the cloud? Nothing changes. You have infrastructure security built into your PeopleSoft platform today. You have rules and regulations around OS access, networking access, storage access, database access, audit trails, all of those things. All of that just gets moved to the cloud because the infrastructure is very similar. It's just that you are not in charge of managing it, worrying about hardware going obsolete, worrying about patches and fixes at the database level, security patches, for example. That is outsourced as a service. Your PeopleSoft security, you still have full control over that unless you don't want to have that. You still have full control because you control the application, you control people tools, you have full admin privileges from a security standpoint to go in and apply your security models, which, by the way, you're not reapplying. You're just moving them as a set of PeopleSoft scripts and objects and things like that from your on-prem instance to the cloud. So you continue to enforce all of the rules that you have. Customization, as I said before in the previous slide, you have full access to people tools. So you can customize PeopleSoft in the cloud instance as well. Imagine loading a instance for upgrade, doing the upgrade in the cloud, and then releasing that instance to your developers. They are just doing their development retrofit on a PeopleSoft instance. They don't know the difference. They don't have to know the difference between that being a cloud instance or an on-prem instance. It should work and function exactly the same way. Upgrade, if you want to do an upgrade, I was just talking about that. Why spin up additional servers? Why go through procurement process to buy new hardware or burden your teams to add more storage and so on and so forth? It's a set of environments that you're going to do away with anyway. Once your 6-month, 1-year upgrade project, however long it is, it's going to be over. You don't need that hardware and software anymore. So why not use something that's a little more disposable, easier to provision, easier to discard, and gives you full functionality while you're at it. And support, you have plenty of options when you go to the cloud model. You can continue to have your same PeopleSoft team support all the instances in the cloud, from your functional team to your technical team to your infrastructure team, or you can say, I'm eliminating infrastructure support and technical support because that comes packaged with the cloud, and I'm repurposing all of my resources to focus more on upgrade, to focus more on value add, more enhancement, more optimization of PeopleSoft. So what is the message that comes across on the slide? Nothing changes in the behavior of your PeopleSoft application or the way you interact with your PeopleSoft application when it's in the cloud. It's just that it's a cloud instance, and it has the same networking capabilities, connectivity, security, integration, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about benefits of PeopleSoft on the cloud. You can, and this is something that we offer today, you can access a one-click installation and configuration option for your PeopleSoft system. There's some magic that goes on behind the scenes. There's a secret sauce for that. There are some people tools that we take advantage of. But rather than going through a checklist of processes that your PS admin or Apps DBA would work with their sysadmin on, now you would say, give me an instance. You would click on a web page, and 2 hours later, or shorter than that, you would get a link in your email saying, here's your instance, please start using it. And there are some configurations options there. You can say, I want a dev instance, I want it of this size, I want it to have this sort of integration capability. All of those are going to be menu-driven options. So think about how powerful that can be. And then it's responsive. So now your PeopleSoft deployment, some of you in the questionnaire that you filled out have told us you deploy within a week, within a day, but many of you have said it takes up to a month for you to deploy a PeopleSoft instance. That's a tremendous waste of time to have to put in a service request or talk to your IT counterparts and tell them you want an instance, and they'll say, yeah, we can give that to you, but it'll take us a month because we're backlogged or we're short-staffed or it's just a manual process for us or some combination of that. So think about that and how cloud can make that very responsive and easy to use. And then multi-use. So you may deploy an instance in the cloud for dev test, for training, for reporting, make it secure. You can have them connect to your on-premise systems and make it easy. Efficiencies, plenty. You can obviously reduce your TCO because now you're reducing your hardware footprint. Maybe you start with all your non-production systems and you only pay for compute resources, right? So it's a much lower cost of ownership from when you look at eliminating all of the overheads associated with managing and maintaining those systems, the hardware, the power, the data center space, monitoring systems, and things like that. So all of that's available with a rapid deployment model that we offer. You can select to go on the Oracle Public Cloud, Amazon, Microsoft Cloud, your private cloud, whatever your options are. Now, when you do all of this, what is it that you should expect to see as outcomes or benefits? You should see up to 85% improvements in time to deploy. So for those of you who are spending or waiting for a month for a PeopleSoft instance to be deployed, or a week, you should see that time cut down into hours, not even days. You should see a lot of the manual tasks completely eliminated in deploying, managing, supporting a PeopleSoft instance, because the cloud gives you the ability to just consume services along with the infrastructure, and you get a platform as a service, and I'll show you a slide later on what the platform as a service option gives you. You buy database as a service, you're really not worried about installing and configuring and fine-tuning the database. That task is taken care of automatically for you when you say, I want a database instance. Resource costs are lower. Don't think about this necessarily as elimination of resources. I don't know how large your teams are and what overhead you carry today, but in any scenario that you have, you will be able to reallocate resources, retrain them so that they are now focused more on the app layer as opposed to infrastructure and management of that infrastructure. So let's move on and talk a little bit about what use cases there are. And so there are many ways you can do this, obviously. So public cloud, think about Oracle Public Cloud, Amazon, Microsoft. You may have pure cloud providers who only provide infrastructure. So you could go to a Rackspace and just get bare metal and do that on there. A private cloud is nothing but your organization's own cloud initiative that you are plugging PeopleSoft into. Maybe cloud right now is for all of your consumer-facing business applications, and you've not yet put any back-office applications on the cloud. You can piggyback onto that infrastructure and move from your current infrastructure into the cloud-based infrastructure within your private cloud. You can have a hybrid cloud option, which is a combination of the first two. And you can use cloud specifically for projects. You can say, I want to ramp up a few cloud instances just for 6 months until my upgrade is over. And then when that's done, I'm done with my cloud. So there are so many ways you could do this. There's no one defined method. It really depends on your need, your ability to advance to that level, your comfort within that. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion that happens internally before you make a move like that. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can really tailor this to your organization's needs. Some additional use cases, let's say you just want to test some pre-production workloads, then you can use very highly scalable platform as a service options. You can put a scalable database on there without having to worry about beefing up your internal database and saying, I want to run 10,000 users as a test for my open enrollment period. Or we are releasing a self-service application. There's going to be 40,000 people logging in. You want to simulate that workload. What you want to do is really take advantage of cloud, because cloud can scale with your workload without you having to worry about that. All you have to do is specify that option that I want this to scale. And behind the scenes, the provider takes care of all of that stuff. You're focused on building the transactions, the tests that test that scalability. Once that is done, you can always go back to your provider and say, I want this to extend my production system so that I can scale specifically around quarter end, on year end, or open enrollment time, whatever your needs are. And then you can also use cloud for DR, for backups, for reporting instances, production copies that you may want to use for other things, etc. So there's a lot of other ways you can take advantage of cloud. Let's talk about common concerns. I have another 10 minutes of presentation before I open this for Q&A. So integration, many of you asked how integration would work if your PeopleSoft application was on the cloud. So think about integration in the context of everything I have explained so far. PeopleSoft on the cloud should not function differently than PeopleSoft on-prem, right? So just the fact that your instance is on the cloud does not mean that you have to do brand new things for integration. You can do old school integration, however you have it set up. Let's say all of your integration is flat file and you have DB links and all of that fun stuff going on in your environment. You can still continue to do that. It just means that your cloud system, your PeopleSoft cloud instance, is securely connecting to your current on-prem infrastructure. And through that secure connection, you are just enabling all of the current integrations you have, right? And then if your production is not yet on the cloud, from production to your third party, to your suppliers, vendors, all of that stuff, nothing changes at the moment. If you want to take a step up and say, while we're moving to the cloud, we also want to take advantage of cloud-based integration services, streamline everything, move slowly and steadily towards web-based integration, web services, and so on, then you can consider integration as a service. It's a platform as a service model. It's a pre-built solution, so you just consume that as a service and you use the online tools available for you. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but there are several videos on YouTube on how, for example, Oracle's integration as a service works in the cloud. Everything is configurable. You have endpoints that you define, connections, and all of those things, and you just stitch them together visually in a very nice looking tool. There are several pre-built connectors for Oracle applications, and you can build your own if a pre-built connector does not exactly meet your needs. So integration is fairly straightforward. If you've already invested and built out all the integrations, all of them will still work as long as the connectivity is there from your cloud instance to your other partners through a secure network. Cloud security, big concerns for everybody who's attended the webinar today and who is registered for the webinar and then feedback that you've provided. So this is not something that you want to take lightly. Obviously, when you look for a cloud model, you want to look at regulatory security practices, data privacy, physical security attributes, logical security attributes, and more. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but if you have all of these things today, you want to make sure you find something that is equivalent or better when you move to the cloud. I would always look for something better. So as a part of that move to the cloud, you get better security, better performance, better scalability. Why not, right? Why not take advantage of that? What you will find is that the majority of providers today have a lot more security certifications and capabilities under their belt than what most traditional in-house or on-premise data centers have. And that's just because they are larger providers. They're doing this across the board for all of their consumers because they're going to cater to healthcare, financial services, nonprofit, government, all of these different agencies, international customers. So they've gone ahead and invested in that security apparatus or infrastructure that can satisfy all those customers. And you now, as a new customer to the cloud, you're just consuming that as a service. You're not putting a burden on your IT team saying, I want you guys to build a HIPAA compliant set of infrastructure services or PCI compliant or data privacy compliant. You are basically enabling that as a service, and you're taking advantage of the broader security capabilities that your cloud provider has without having to manage and maintain that. Keeping up with all of the certifications on a yearly basis, performing routine audits, all of those things are now services that are part of your platform as a service option. So for example, if you get database as a service, then making sure the database is patched up to the latest security level, it's not your concern. You are getting that as part of the standard service offering that the cloud provider gives you. So what does something look like on the PeopleSoft on Cloud model? So here's a stack that I just built out as an example for you to think about PeopleSoft on Cloud. Starting at the bottom layer, it's platform as a service gives you database. So when you get database as a service, you're not buying hardware and operating system for that database as a separate piece. It comes bundled in because the database needs infrastructure to run on. You're paying for that service as you consume it and how much of it you consume, and that becomes a pre-configured option for you. You just have to put your PeopleSoft application on it. Similarly, if you want to layer on platform as a service for integration, it's all pre-built along with the servers and everything. You get access to it as long as you say, yes, I want this, and you just start using it. Again, you're not worried about how long it takes for the cloud provider to launch a server, put the platform, integration platform on it, configure it to your needs. No, all of that is taken care of with a few clicks. It's ready to go, and you're just consuming it or using it. And then PeopleSoft on the cloud, what we have done at Astute, and Oracle's, I believe, doing something similar, is we have packaged all of these things for you so that you can say, I am on FSCM 9.2, I want a dev test instance with Pump 17, and you can click on that and say launch, and it will just launch that instance for you. And behind the scenes, it will incorporate database integration and all of those features that you want to go along with your PeopleSoft dev test environment in that example. So again, no custom installs, everything is pre-configured, images are available, and these are all modular, so you can pick and choose the way you want to do it. If you don't want to consume a packaged offering for PeopleSoft as a service, you can certainly say, I just need database as a service and some other infrastructure on which I could put my PeopleSoft apps on, like my web server and file server and process scheduler, and I'll let my team manage that. You can certainly do that. There's no reason why you cannot do that. All of these things are mix and match. Yes, you need database as a service, but you can say, I don't want database as a service. I just want bare metal infrastructure. I'll go to Amazon and I'll launch a Linux server with X capacity, and I'll give my DBA and sysadmin full access to it, and they'll just install software because we have licenses and we can reuse that. You can certainly do that, but then you're really not shifting to cloud model as much because you're still incurring all the overheads of maintaining and updating that infrastructure. So the top layer custom, it can be a combination of the bottom three and anything else that you want to throw on top of that. So you may want to add scalability. You may want to add you may want to host a server that contains, let's say, your custom bespoke applications, something that you built in-house, a .NET application, Microsoft Access-based application, Java-based application. I don't know what you guys use, but you can say, in addition to PeopleSoft on the cloud, I want an additional server or two, which may have database on it, which may have integration on it. Again, you have to choose. And on top of that, I'm going to load my custom web application. And that's going to talk to PeopleSoft. So you can make those connectivity things work as well. So a sample model there for you to consider. So that's where I'm going to pause the presentation, and I'm going to go into Q&A. So for those of you who have questions, please use the chat feature on Join Me, and feel free to ask me anything about what you've heard today, and I'll be happy to answer them. If I cannot answer them today, I'll write down those questions and find answers for you, and we'll reply back to all of you in a completed FAQ at the end of the week or early next week. While you're thinking about that, I'm curious to hear about those who have said that they are looking at specific cloud providers. If there's a question that you have on why Oracle Public Cloud versus Amazon EC2 versus Microsoft, is one better than the other, why you would go down one of those paths, what your consideration should be, feel free to post that. I'll be happy to engage in that discussion and share some thoughts with you. We have some experiences working with customers in many of these environments. We have some examples of how we recently did something on Amazon EC2. So a lot of the automation capability that I'm talking about is pre-built for Astute, in that, as in you can select by version, by PUM image, by PeopleTools version, and just click on launch, and it should get you an instance almost immediately. So, and you pay for compute resources, you pay as you go. So those are the advantages of doing that. So question from a viewer here, may I know who is the cloud service provider? So we are not limiting your options or our options that we offer to a particular service provider. We work with Oracle Public Cloud, where Oracle is a provider, with Amazon EC2, so using Amazon Web Services, with Microsoft Cloud, Microsoft being the provider. Those are the three main that we go to market with, but some of our customers have other cloud service providers that they're already working with, big or small. Somebody has an IBM footprint, somebody has AT&T, depending on what you have. So all of those things are just additional options for us to deploy on the cloud. You can work with any of them. We work with all of them, so it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we know what we're going to consume as a service, and we know what additional PeopleSoft services you can layer on top of that. Viewer 61, how does the end application user access a log file or the interface file hosted on cloud servers? Good question. So log file access, for those of you who are thinking PS admin, I want to go into the app server, look at a log file when I trace something, you can easily expose those through shared drives or other ways to do that, depending on what level of access you want and what services you want to consume from the cloud provider and where you want complete control. That's just a matter of setup. Again, think of your cloud infrastructure as your existing infrastructure just transposed to cloud, where you're not really moving your servers physically, but you're taking your software, putting it on a cloud provider's infrastructure stack. Now within that, depending on whether you go with platform as a service or infrastructure as a service, you have options on the level of granularity with the access and security controls. You mentioned, Chris is asking, you mentioned 2 hours to create an environment. If you're in Tools 854, we could get a new Tools 855 environment in 2 hours. That's absolutely correct. Actually, it's less than 2 hours. I'm just giving my team a little bit of a buffer. The reason for that is because this is completely automated. It's completely scripted. We don't actually start installing anything after we receive a customer order. We just say, run this script for this particular 855 version for this application. It goes in, selects the infrastructure, runs the script to or overlays the image on that, modifies the URLs, gives you a login ID, and gives you access, and you can go in and start using it. It's as automated as that. Viewer 58, follow up to the previous question. Do we have a comparison between various service providers? Nothing that we have as a canned offering. There may be some content on the internet, but when we build a roadmap for cloud for customers as part of our strategy services, those are some of the details we get into. We work with the customer to identify what their top 2 or 3 choices are, including any existing providers that they may be working with. We help them compare and contrast their options and give them recommendations as objective as we can be to compare those and help them decide what is the best way to move forward. Question from Trudy. Please speak to the topic questions you just referenced regarding how to evaluate an option such as Oracle or Amazon, etc. So I think there are multiple things that go into your evaluation process. Some of you may already have an Amazon footprint. So I spoke to a large financial services company last month, and they are not looking at Oracle Public Cloud or Microsoft or any other option, and only looking at Amazon because a lot of their mobility-based applications are already on the Amazon cloud. So from an infrastructure standpoint, the customers' teams, in-house teams, are already familiar on how to operate an Amazon EC2. They just want to know what are the specifics of moving a PeopleSoft application there. So we are helping them with just that part. So it really depends on whether you already have a footprint in the cloud or not. Now, if you don't have anything in the cloud and you're purely brick and mortar and all on-prem data center and things like that, which is not the case with most companies today, then you can start off on a clean slate and you can look at the three options that I've laid out and start configuring the service that best meets your needs. Viewer 43, how do you manage code migrations? Again, it's like connecting to another instance, except that instance is not in your physical data center. You should have PeopleTools connectivity to that instance. You can use, depending on if you're on 9.2 and 8.5.4 or higher, we recommend using application data sets to migrate code, configuration, PeopleSoft projects to migrate code. You would just use project files and things like that. You should think of this as an extension of your current infrastructure, except that it's on the cloud. You should have full access to migrate them yourselves, or if that's a service that you don't want to do and you want a provider to give you, then we provide an option for you where you upload your project and log a service request and you tell us which instance it has to go into, and we'll manage that for you. So it depends on how you want to structure that, but if you want a one-to-one scenario where you have full access to everything that you're doing today, you should be able to migrate code as well. Question from Ram, how easy or difficult is it to migrate data in and out? Great question. When you migrate data, you have to be aware that the first time you move an entire dev or test database along with the transactional data that's in there, it may take some time because some of you have databases that are as large as a terabyte or more. Others are operating on much smaller instances of 200 or 300 gigabytes. So there is a process to upload that database backup and file server backup and your customizations, etc., if you're doing those separately from your on-prem location to the cloud so that it can be restored onto the cloud instance. But hopefully that's not something that you'll be doing every week or every day, because once you have the instance up in there, you have a database that you can operate on. If you're done with the cloud, let's say you go with the option where you're using cloud only for your upgrade, you can certainly package everything and bring it back. It's a one-time move back. The only constraint there is time and bandwidth. With the cloud provider, you have to be aware that in addition to compute, you're also paying for storage and bandwidth separately in most occasions. So think about those costs and make sure that you're clearly aware of what those are and before you go into this. Viewer 58, when you said instance available in 2 hours, is this a demo instance? Does not have to be a demo instance. It can be a dev test instance as well, but it will be a plain dev test instance in that 2-hour window without your code or configuration included in that. What we intend to do is provide an online portal through which you can say, okay, now I've launched my dev test instance. Now I want a interface through which I can upload my security, my code and configuration, my project files, and I want to be able to load those in. We are trying to make that as seamless as possible so that you have a web interface to do that. You don't have to go through a custom process or FTP stuff over, but that will make that much more seamless. Until you have that in place from us as a service offering, you have the option to go in and access your remote desktop and PeopleTools and load data however you want to do it. Do you advise we keep a copy of all of our customizations, configuration, security locally? I think this falls into the realm of just how well you want to back up and secure an environment. So as a good practice, as a best practice, we always recommend you keep frequent backups of at least major changes that you're making into the system before and after. Now, when you have a hybrid environment, if you have some instances in the cloud and your production system on-prem, yes, you do want to make sure that you take frequent backups of whatever you're working on so that you don't lose that. and maybe bring a copy back to your on-prem servers as well. If you go with something like database as a service, a platform as a service option, database backups are included into your service. You're not paying for those separately. You just have to understand how frequent those are and how you can access that backup when you need that. So those are all service provider specific. How easy is it to apply Oracle CPUs on the cloud-based infrastructure? I'm assuming this is related to your Oracle CPU licenses on cloud. If you go to the Oracle public cloud, I believe they make it very easy. There is a bit of a process though. It's not as seamless as they reading your CSI number and applying CPUs automatically for you, but Oracle will work with you on that. If it is Amazon or Microsoft, we would just take your Oracle license and work with you to apply that enterprise license across your Amazon cloud infrastructure, and I can take an offline question on that if needed. Will it be as fast as deploying the new application? Absolutely. In fact, you should see anything that you deploy in the cloud be much faster than what it is traditionally in your on-prem data center. The reasons for that are many, but the primary reason is you are now consuming this as a service. So think of all the manual tasks that you would have to do, all the people you would have to get into a room, have a kickoff meeting, log a project plan, submit service requests to the sysadmin, to the networking person, to the DBA and PS admin, and do the downloads from Oracle eDelivery for your latest image. All of that goes away. You select on an instance, you click on the version and image combination, for example, in 9.2 and say, I want this instance, and you get that instance. So it has to be much faster and will be much faster than the traditional way of doing things. In AWS, do you have to plan and manage rehydration process? I am not sure I understand that question. So viewer 58, if you want to elaborate on that, I can certainly speak to that. We do a lot of things with EC2, Amazon, but I'm not familiar with rehydration. Moving on to viewer 40, we are supported by a data center. What work effort is involved to integrate your product? I would say it's minimal, because if you're already supported in your data center, then all you need to know is what are your endpoints of PeopleSoft that are talking to external applications outside your data center, and whether you want your cloud instances to talk to that. And I say that specifically because sometimes you may have dev test instances that you don't want them to be fully integrated. You just want them for purely development and test. And then maybe there's an integration test instance where you want your integrations to be configured. So it depends on how you're setting it up and what the purpose of your instance is. But for the most part, if you have web services-based integrations or integration broker-based transactions, you are repointing them to the new instance. Flat file, a little more work. Database links, again, rearranging them or repointing them to the new databases. Not a big fan of database links, would not encourage that. And anything that's file-based, you need secure FTP and things like that if you want to integrate from your cloud instance directly to your third party. Rehydration is every 60 days. AWS forces to recreate an instance. That does not have to be the case on AWS as far as my knowledge and experience goes. You can have reserved instances, and you can manage them and choose them however you want to do that. If you are looking at having that as part of your PeopleSoft plan, we can certainly talk about that offline, but if you're looking at a duration of a certain number of months that's beyond that 60-day period, and you want a dedicated instance that you don't have to refresh, then you have options within AWS to get that, and other cloud providers as well. I didn't get any questions on upgrade using cloud. I was surprised because some of you are not on 9.2 and most of you are not on the latest PUM image. I was expecting to see some questions around whether you could do upgrade in the cloud and bring it back in-house, or upgrade and move to the cloud entirely. I think those are some very good options for customers to think through, especially if you have not yet upgraded to 9.2. Again, don't think of cloud purely as Amazon or Oracle public cloud. It could be your own organization's cloud, but making that move to cloud will in general be a good move from all angles, from a resource standpoint, overhead standpoint, performance standpoint, responsiveness, etc. So for those of you who are planning your upgrade, definitely think about how you can host and manage or consume PeopleSoft instances in the cloud, as opposed to doing the old school way of buying more servers and things like that. So we have about 5 minutes left, folks. Thank you for all the questions. I'm happy to hang back and answer more questions if you have time to stay beyond the allocated time. But thank you again for your questions. One more question here. I believe Oracle's new upgraded environment with PUM is delivered as a cloud service. If this is in reference to Oracle Public Cloud, the answer is yes and no. As of my last check with the Oracle Public Cloud, they don't have the latest PUM image available on OPC for you to consume, but they do provide, whatever they do provide is demo. What Astute provides in comparison is we always have the latest image available for you to consume, and that's on the Amazon cloud right now. We're working with Oracle Public Cloud to have that same functionality delivered through Astute as a partner if you want to go to Oracle Public Cloud. And we differentiate between instances, so you can get demo, dev test, sandbox, training, integration instances. It depends on how all of those things work. So a couple of other questions here. Comparison study for in-house versus cloud in terms of cost. Yes, we have done that for some customers as part of our roadmap exercise and our health check for upgrade service offerings. So we can certainly share some details with you depending on what your cost needs are and how you plan to build an ROI, for example, for cloud. How do you test in the cloud? Can you automate testing in the cloud? Yes, you can do that. And again, if you plan to use something like PeopleSoft Test Framework for testing your upgrade or testing your PUM image update, all of those things come in as PeopleSoft objects. So regardless of whether the instance is in the cloud or the instance is on-prem, it should work seamlessly and should work exactly the same. Thank you again for all of your questions. Appreciate your participation. Hopefully this was helpful. A copy of the presentation will be available on via email for all of the registrants, and you should get an email update from us next week, along with a link to the recording. The recording of this webinar will also be on our website and I believe on YouTube as well in our channel next week sometime. So in case others in your organization missed it, or you just want to rewind that because you liked all the pretty slides that I put up today, happy to provide that to you over YouTube. You can play that and feel free to contact us, cloud.beastute.com, email info@beastute.com, and find more information on our website. We are posting new content almost every day in the form of blogs or web content or white papers and FAQs. FAQs from today's webinar will also go onto our website under cloud.beastute.com, so please keep an eye out for that, and you'll get a link to that also in a follow-up email. Have a wonderful Friday and wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining, and with that, I'll conclude today's webinar. Goodbye.